comparison. There are two ways to prevent or to offset your longevity risk. One is to be
to
good.
die fast.
Oh,
Is that what you're?
Oh, I was going to say.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Fun Money Podcast. We are your hosts, Josh Hargrove
and Ross Powell. Hey, every week we say welcome back, but what if you're a first-time listener?
Welcome for the first time.
Welcome for the first time.
We want
first-time listeners.
everyone
If
to
this
feel
is your
welcome.
first episode, you probably already quit listening.
These jokers, I'm gone. Hey, we are talking today about something called longevity risk. Longevity risk.
Longevity risk.
Longevity risk.
Okay, Josh, tell me, what is longevity risk?
Well, Ross, before I go there,
You have a story?
let's start here. Are you a gamer? Would you consider yourself a gamer?
No. In respect of gamers, of actual gamers, I would say no.
No, okay.
I do have a favorite video game,
What is it?
Legend of Zelda,
Oh,
the original
the original.
on NES. It's the one I've played the most, the one I've enjoyed the most.
Do you still
On
play
occasion,
on occasion?
Yeah.
Still? Wow, okay.
I have it on the Wii.
No, we are not.
Anyway.
Yeah, I'm a few years older than you, but
Are you a gamer?
We're kind of similar. No, I would not consider myself a gamer. I would say at most I dabble. Hey, thanks for letting us hear your drink swallow. That's cool. Okay,
I'm thirsty. It's the middle of July and the sun is dying outside.
yeah, and it's taken us with it. So here's where I'm going with that. With this, when I was growing up, we lived by this grocery store that I could bike to. So pretty short biking distance here. And in this grocery store, they had a series of arcade games. So of course, my neighborhood pals and I would like to frequent the grocery store and play the video game. Street Fighter was my favorite.
Classic.
Yep. And then when the first Mortal Kombat game came out, they had Mortal Kombat. Okay, but here's where I'm going with this. So what do? You go to the grocery store, you bring your quarters, or as my late grandmother would say, quarters. You bring your quarters, and you play, and you play until when?
Till your quarters ran out.
Until your quarters ran out, exactly. So if you get up there with your pals and you bring your quarters, and you're going to town, and you're
Fighter.
keep dying,
Dies.
and you keep having to feed this thing quarters, eventually you run out, and guess what? Your fun is over, and it's time for you to go home, right? And that was never a good day to be the one that runs out of quarters the fastest. So what does this have to do?
I think there are two ways to run out of quarters last.
Yeah.
One is to be good at Street Fighter.
That's right.
And the other is to bring a whole stack of quarters. Is this where you're headed?
Yeah, exactly. And I was in the former. I did not avail myself of the former, so I was not ever.
You were never good enough to beat
Yeah.
all your friends.
I was decent. I could win
You
occasionally.
would wear them
but
down.
I'd wear them down with my quarters.
With your quarters.
My deep supply of quarters. Okay, so when we talk about investments, particularly risks associated with like your retirement planning, okay? Investment risk is a really hot topic. And right now, as of the time of this podcast recording, we've been in a declined market for some time, and so it's got kind of has everybody on edge, right? I mean, stock market is down, bond market is down, and so you have a lot of people going like, "Oh my gosh," especially if you're retired or pre-retired, and that certainly that's a risk that you should be concerned about. But the thing that more retirees are concerned about than let me rephrase that. The thing that retirees are most commonly more concerned about than they are investment risk is this thing called longevity risk.
Longevity risk.
Okay, so just like if you run out of quarters, longevity risk essentially is the risk of you outliving your retirement assets.
Yeah. So I think back to your arcade comparison, there are two ways to prevent or to offset your longevity risk. One is to be
to die fast.
Oh,
Is that what you're?
No, I was going to say to be good at your money management for those fixed incomes that you've got coming in and your relative fixed expenses. If there's some disparity, some gap between those two, that'll help reduce the need for those funds to fill in that gap because the gap is smaller.
Yeah.
Or the gap is manageable.
Yep. The gap is managed. The gap can be manageable. Yeah.
And the other thing is to have a big stack of cash, which is a great opportunity to extend that into the future.
Yeah. So there's a lot.
Say stack of cash. I mean, retirement accounts and investments.
Right. There's a lot that goes into this because if you are already retired, then there are potentially some things that you can do to mitigate longevity risk. If you are many years or decades from retirement, then there are some things that you can do which are different, but will help you mitigate longevity risk when you do get to that retirement phase. And so we want to talk a little bit about these two. So let's start with if you are
if you're already in
younger.
retirement.
No, let's start the other way. Yeah.
Young.
Let's start with a younger person. So somebody who's 30, 35, 40 years old. Okay, and they come to you and they say, Ross, what if I live to be 95, 100, 105, 110? Because people are living longer and longer, medical technology advancements being what they are, people are living longer. So if that's me, what do I need to do to be prepared for that? Any ideas? Like, what do you think you would, maybe not 110,
sure,
but just
no,
the idea of making sure that you don't outlive?
Look, I know that the conversation is financially based, but the first thing I would say is take care of your body. So take care of your health. If you want to live long into life, you want to be able to do the things that you want to do, your body is going to be the thing that could be your restriction. So take care of your health. And that will also help take care of your financial as you have reduced health costs, less prescriptions, less maintenance costs.
Is there a way that you could tell me how much money I would need to have if I live to be a certain number of years old? Is there a way that you could kind of
There are
me?
some actuarial tables where someone's
No. What I mean is like if I said I'm going to need $100,000 a year every year from when I'm retired at whatever age, and I live to be 100. Could you tell me how much money I need to have?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we could mathematically back into what is $100,000. Is that what you're asking for?
Bingo. Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
But one of the factors that I hope that you'll cover here as you're going to lead into this conversation is purchasing power, parity.
Explain.
So if you think you need $100,000 today, 20 years from now, how much will that $100,000 actually be buying you?
Right.
Is it going to buy you the lifestyle that you think that it is? Is it have similar purchasing power parity between today and 20 years from the future?
Yeah, good. And that's a great point, which is when you're doing said calculation, you want it to take into consideration inflation
Some kind of estimate of inflation.
Yeah. So, but you nailed it, which is, yes, you definitely can do the calculation. We can do a calculation. I mean, and really anybody, you could go online and find a financial calculator that will do this, but essentially you're just plugging in some data points that say, here's what I would need, and here's when the starting point of retirement is, and here's my ending point, and, how much am I going to need to cover that gap? And so pre-retirement, a lot of it is just simply it's a mathematical calculation to figure out how much money should you be investing, saving every month, every year, so that you know that you won't outlive your outlive your retirement assets.
Yeah.
So that's probably the biggest tool in your toolbox this side of retirement is just that calculation and making sure that you're saving enough money so that nest egg, as it were, is sufficient.
Yeah. And just goes to say here, the more time you have, the smaller that monthly savings nugget is.
Yeah, exactly. Well, okay, actually, there's two ways that you could actually think about what you just said.
All right.
The more time you have between now and when you start retirement, there's that amount might be smaller. But the more time you want to budget for in terms of your longevity.
Ooh.
the larger the amount is that you're going to need to save.
Yes.
So do you, and I actually don't know what you're going to say here, but what do you like in a typical retirement projection when you're doing that analysis? Like, what do you typically show as kind of the ending point? Like, this is when
90.
we're projecting you to die.
90. Average age of end of life is in that 82 to 83 range.
Yeah.
Depending on male or female and health conditions, all kinds of other factors. But in my calculations, I use 90.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's right, sometimes it's not right.
Yep.
But
90 is a great rule of thumb. And I think you could even go to 95 and be reasonable there, especially given the statistics around married couples who both live to be at least 65 years old. The likelihood of one of them living to be 90 is, I don't remember the number, but it's
more likely.
It's very likely that at least one of those spouses will live to be 90 years old. And so 95 is really not that much further down the road. Okay. So that's the biggest lever tool, if you will, of what you have that you can do pre-retirement. And there are some other, we could have a whole nother episode on this, on other moves and things that you could do. But let's shift and talk. What if you are in retirement or nearing retirement? And so you don't really have the time to save anymore.
Your additions to your nest egg are limited.
Are limited,
I think
exactly.
that's another way to look at this. Yeah.
So then what do you do if you are in that situation? Okay. So this is where, and so I read an article about this recently in the Wall Street Journal, and this was where
Did you say read or wrote?
Read. I read the article. Yeah, I didn't write this one. So this I've never written an article. That sounds like I've written an article for the Wall Street Journal. Yeah.
Not this time.
Not yet. Okay. So where this article went and where a lot of this conversation tends to go is fixed income, guaranteed income, essentially annuities, using annuities.
Yeah. Promised.
Yeah, so Social Security is supposed to pay you for as long as you live. If you live to be 90, 95, 100, it's going to continue to pay for as long as you live. It's essentially a pension. It's, social insurance, okay? So you can basically get your own private pension or private, insurance with a purchase of an annuity. And what that annuity is going to do is it is going to guarantee income to you for the rest of your life.
Wow, Josh. Annuities are so good. Everyone should use them.
Everyone should use an annuity.
Oh, no. Sorry. I probably shouldn't even be saying that out loud.
Yeah. Okay, but that's a great... Okay, so just because it might solve this problem, does that mean you should run out?
Does that mean that's my
go
problem?
Get one now? Is that what you should do?
No.
No. Yeah, of course not. Okay.
Do some evaluation on what fixed income do you need.
Yeah, exactly. So I think what we really want people to take away from this with regard to that retirement conversation is an annuity might be a good idea. There are some pros and there are some cons. And I know you didn't prep for this, but give me some pros. Can you give me what are 2, maybe 3 advantages of an annuity, Ross?
The advantage that I can first think of is the promise from the insurance company that they're going to continue to pay the amount that you've annuitized the contract for.
Yeah.
Over whether it's your life or your life plus your spouse, that guarantee that they're going to continue to make it, or even if they're going to continue to make it. So if the market dips and you're invested in the market, you may not be able to draw out because the market value has gone down. But if the market dips and you're invested in an annuity, that insurance company is going to continue to pay that fixed amount.
Yeah.
But they have done. So you asked me to give pros. That's a pro.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get into the cons while I'm talking about pros, but that's a pro.
Yeah. That's the one of the biggest pros is that exact thing, which is it can provide income to you for the rest of your life if you actually annuitize it or actually turn it into that income.
I would say another pro of private annuity compared to the Social Security annuity is that you get the choice of who the beneficiaries are or the time that the
Right.
contract is going to pay out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
it could be a fixed period, and you're going to get a certain number of payments, so you know exactly how much is going to be paid out, whether it's paid to you or your heirs. Or you could get that fixed incomes for the rest of your life plus your spouse's life, whoever dies last. Or it could be the rest of your life plus an adjustment for your heirs for the rest of their life. So there are options for there are more options for private annuitization than there are for Social Security. So that would be a second pro.
Yeah. Can you think of another
No.
one? Oh man, even as an accountant, I was kind of surprised. There is a tax advantage to an annuity if you're talking non-qualified dollars, is that you get to defer the taxes on growth. So the income that comes out is going to be a partial return of basis and a partial gain. So anyway, so they potentially could be a little tax advantage, but these are the advantages of an annuity, and they are good tools potentially to help you mitigate that longevity risk. And kind of ensure that you're going to have income every month, every year, no matter what, that you don't have to worry about. But there are some disadvantages to annuities as well.
Yeah.
You want to take a stab at one or two?
First one I would say is cost, and no guaranteed return of that cost. So there are potential situations where you annuitize the contract and then you don't get the full return that you anticipated, and it's just a win for the insurance company. You didn't live as long as you thought that you were, and so you didn't draw on those payments as long as you needed to, versus just investing in the market in a safe way, or even just having cash sometimes, depending on how long that period is of payout.
Yeah. Yeah. And annuities can be expensive. There are a lot of fees associated with them, and so that will deteriorate your value there, or potentially the income that you're going to get off of this thing. And then the other, kind of the flip side is if the advantage is that you get this guaranteed income, the disadvantage is that you no longer have access to that, to that money in a lump sum type of a structure. Okay. And listen, you might be listening to this going, well, yeah, but what about, and there are so many different types of annuities.
I definitely was not prepared for this conversation to be recorded and to publishing this conversation. But because like you said, there's so many avenues of, is it this one? Is it that one? And what are the pros and cons of, and they're all a little different, and they can all be good or bad in any given situation.
Yeah. So, the point of today's episode is not should you or shouldn't you get an annuity. It's just to make you aware of this thing called longevity risk, and to encourage you to do your planning, to do good planning, so that you are prepared. Whether you're 30 years old or 70 years old, you need to be asking the question, what if I live to be, pretty old? And if I do, am I going to run out of money? And so you really need to stress test your retirement plan with that type of scenario. And there are some tools available to, some financial instruments, if you will, some strategies that can help you to mitigate that risk. But definitely you need to make sure you mitigate that risk.
Yeah. And I would also say that every retiree or couple's situation is a little different from their neighbors. They may actually have access to a pension, whether it's state funded or company funded. They may have fixed income that they don't need to solve for.
Yeah.
So,
and I would argue, and I think you would agree with this, that the best plan would be that you have saved and invested well enough that you can fully fund any reasonable lifespan that you're going to have. You can fully fund it from just the assets that you have, and you have very little risk that you're going to have to take in order to make that achievable. And so really then the question just becomes, how much of an inheritance are you passing on or not, depending on how long you live. But if you are concerned about it, or a lot of times the reason why the annuity, for example, is a good fit is just simply because I just don't even want to worry about it. Even if the math says I have enough, I just don't want to worry about it. And so let me get this thing that I know I can just count on.
Yeah.
And hey, if that's what you want to do with your money, that's fine. But again, as always, we would suggest get with a good financial professional who is a fiduciary, which, by the way, probably most people selling annuities are not fiduciaries. They just have a suitability standard. So keep that in mind. But, you want to look for a fiduciary who can help you decide, is an annuity the best thing for you or not?
Yeah. So in kind of summary here, the ways to reduce your longevity risk is to either be good at Street Fighter or have a lot of quarters.
Exactly. I'm glad you brought it back home for us. Yep.
In summary,
do you have enough
start
quarters?
early and often for your retirement savings, and then plan out how your distributions are going to come when it comes time.
Yeah, that's right. And get better at Street Fighter. That's what the take home is today.
Okay, Josh. What have you been listening to this week?
So I have been listening to a musician that I discovered recently named John Lucas.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's a Christian artist, and so his music is, it kind of has. I wouldn't necessarily say that these are like worship, albums. Like if you were to get like what is it? Hillsong, like a Hillsong or something. Which it's just all worship music. There's some worship songs and then just other kind of Christian theme songs, but it's this kind of a sort of acoustic folk type of style. He has 3 albums. I think the most recent one came out late last year, and it just sounds really good. It's kind of has one of those raspier voices, and anyways, I've really been digging it.
Okay.
Yeah, John Lucas. Check him out. Check
Okay.
him out. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I have been listening to an artist that you may or may not have heard of, because my child said, "Chop it down," and my response was, "With the edge of my hand." You got a blank look on your face.
Chop it.
It's Jimi Hendrix, Voodoo Child.
He says that?
Yeah, he's standing next to a mountain.
Uh-huh.
He's going to chop it down with the edge of his hand. See, Avi's nodding. He knows what I mean.
Wow, Avi, way to go.
Yeah.
Gig 'em.
So, you Aggies. Anyway, Jimi Hendrix. Check him out. He plays guitar on the wrong side of his body.
Yeah.
Uses the wrong hand, upside down.
Uses the right hand the wrong way. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Jimi Hendrix. Yeah, he's pretty good.
Yeah. He's all right at guitar
when he was alive and stuff. All right. Well, that's all we have time for today. Thank you guys for listening in, and we will catch you next time.
Please subscribe, comment if you have questions or topic requests, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.